You know, it seems that the University of Iowa loves free speech, except when it comes to students asking questions. So here's what happened. The University of Iowa College of Dentistry sent out an email, apparently, to the entire department denouncing Donald Trump's executive order on critical race theory, banning it from all federal government contractors. And a brave student responded and said, I don't like critical race theory. I don't. And the university responded by threatening him with probation. Now, to their credit, they did appear to back down as soon as a state legislator got involved and told them to cut the nonsense. But you know what? For my money, they don't get off the hook, because you cannot plead free speech when it comes to you and then say, no, students, you are not allowed to question a thing we say or a thing we do. Let's read about what happened in campus reform. The University of Iowa College of Dentistry sent an email to the department condemning President Donald Trump's executive order banning critical race theory in diversity training. After a conservative student responded, the administration threatened him with probation, but later backed down. On October 16th, the College of Dentistry leadership wrote that it strongly condemns Executive Order 13950, which prohibits trainings that are crucial to progressing towards a more equitable and just society. Now, that's not what the executive order does. We have reviewed the executive order several times on this channel, so there are videos of it where we literally go in, look at the executive order, and look at the definition section. Yes, there is a whole definition section in this executive order which defines very, very specifically what it prohibits. Let me give you the short version. If you are teaching that white people are racist because they are white, you can't do that, at least right now as it is, in federal government agencies and federal government contractors. You cannot teach that people are racist because of the color of their skin. You also cannot teach people that their people are born misogynist purely because the gender in which they were born. You cannot teach those things. I actually think that that's a really good thing, but you have all these people that are conflating critical race theory with all diversity training, all racial sensitivity training, if you will, and it's just not true. If you are doing training based purely on critical race theory, you can go to town, man. Have all the racial sensitivity trainings you want. Your employees might not like it. They might not really learn much out of it. Might not actually impact your bottom line at all, or actually help them work together more effectively as a team, or actually make anyone more sensitive to anyone. But you go to town. That is not included in the executive order. The thing that is included is when you separate out the white people, teach them that they are racist, make them write letters of apology for being racist, and then send them on their merry way back into the world to continue to do the work, which they will never stop doing because, as this training teaches, you are racist from the womb when you are white. All right. President Trump signed the order, which defunds entities that teach pernicious and false belief that America is an irredeemably racist and sexist country in late September. Though we understand the importance of complying to avoid a potentially devastating impact on the University of Iowa operations and funding, we stand unified against this order and its attack on people and free speech. Free speech. They stand in defense of attacks on free speech. Can't make this stuff up. Among several individuals who replied all to the email was Michael, a second-year dental student who asked for clarification on the notice that the executive order ought to be condemned. Now, we're going to take a look at Michael's specific email. I wish campus reform didn't put a giant watermark in the middle of it to make it impossible to read, but we're going to take a look anyway. So Michael writes, the COD letter that states Executive Order 13950 prohibits trainings that are crucial to progressing towards a more equitable and just society and undermines fundamental university values and practices. Executive Order 13950 states that agencies should continue all training that will foster a workplace that is respectful of all employees, and that federal contractors and federal grant recipients should, of course, continue to foster environments devoid of hostility, grounded in race, sex, and other federally protected characteristics. Training employees to create an inclusive workplace is appropriate and beneficial. It goes on to dictate that it shall be the policy of the United States not to promote race or sex stereotyping or scapegoating in the federal workforce or in the uniformed services, and not to allow grant funds to be used for these purposes. In addition, federal contractors will not be permitted to inculcate such views in their employees. The order goes on to outline 9 elements of divisive concepts relating to race and sex stereotyping and race and sex scapegoating that are prohibited in federally funded training. Race and sex stereotyping and race and sex scapegoating are then defined as the following. Race and sex stereotyping means ascribing character traits, values, morals, and ethical codes, privileges, statuses, or beliefs to a race or sex and to an individual because of their race or sex. Race or sex scapegoating means assigning fault, blame, and bias to a race or sex or to members of a race or sex because of their race or sex. Essentially what this is saying is you cannot make broad generalizations about who a person is or what they believe or whether they're racist or sexist or what have you purely based on the color of their skin or the gender in which they were born. That's what the executive order says. It summarily encompasses any claim that consciously or unconsciously, and by virtue of his or her race or sex, members of any race are inherently racist or are inherently inclined to oppress others, or that members of that race are inherently sexist or inclined to oppress others. Nowhere does Executive Order 1350 prohibit the teaching of history or trainings that encourage equity and diversity for all races and sexes. Rather, it frequently and repetitively uses the words inherent and fundamental to illustrate what is to be construed as a divisive concept. The Oxford English Dictionary defines inherent as existing in something as permanent, essential, and characteristic attribute. The Oxford English Dictionary defines fundamental as forming a necessary base or core of central importance. Therefore, I ask for clarification regarding the following questions. By condemning Executive Order 13950, does the College of Dentistry support using federal funds to promote trainings that include race or sex stereotyping and or race or sex scapegoating? By condemning the Executive Order 13950, does the College of Dentistry support using federal funds to promote trainings that teach certain races and sexes are inherently or fundamentally oppressive, racist, and sexist as defined above? 3. Since the executive order prohibits race or sex scapegoating or stereotyping, is it to be understood that the College of Dentistry identifies these elements crucial to progressing towards a more equitable and just society? Since the executive number 4, since the executive order prohibits race or sex stereotyping or scapegoating, is it to be understood that the College of Dentistry considers these elements to be in line with fundamental university values and practices? And if the College of Dentistry does not support the items listed in the previous question, then what specifically about the executive order does the College of Dentistry actually condemn? Any clarification would be greatly appreciated. And now we get to where the problem is. Michael is too smart for his own good. He actually read the executive order. He actually understood what the executive order said, and he showed the administrators that wrote this stupid condemnation that he understood it at greater depth than they did. In fact, in short, he made them look stupid. He made them look publicly stupid, which in higher education is a big, big no-no. You never make administrators look publicly stupid because they're some of the most vindictive, nonsensical people on the planet, and they will get their revenge. So let's see what happened next. A handful of individuals likewise replied all, recommending that Michael read the works of Robin DiAngelo and Ibram X. Kendi as though we couldn't see that as a possible outcome of this. One faculty member suggested that maybe the executive order wasn't actually designed to eliminate race and sex-based stereotyping. The executive order, if you read it, it only says the stereotyping and scapegoating thing like every 3 sentences. It is throughout the entire executive order, but apparently this faculty member thinks, who has probably never read the executive order, by the way, oh, they probably didn't mean that. That probably was not intentional. Dr. Stephen Kelly, another faculty member, condemned Michael for responding to the school's email, yet which he also did not appreciate. It took a lot of guts for you to send your letter, Michael, or your email, rather. Hopefully, you'll get a reply that we can all read. Better yet, maybe it will result in a meeting of interested parties. So, faculty members actually responding, threatening students. Great environment you're creating for your... Great... University of Iowa is creating a great inclusive environment for their students, aren't they? On November 9th, Michael received a letter from the university's Collegiate Academic Professional Performance Committee notifying him that he would be subjected to a hearing due to his unprofessional behavior involving the follow-up email after he was offered other means to continue the conversation. The hearing could have resulted in his probation according to the letter. So let's just read that letter that he was sent really quickly. And again, campus reform, you got to cool it with the watermark, man. It makes it really difficult to read this thing, for real. It has come to the attention of CAP, your unprofessional behavior involving the follow-up email you sent out on a public platform after you were offered other means to continue the conversation. In other words, you're entitled to free speech as long as you only use free speech in the way that we say you can use free speech. Otherwise, you are not entitled to free speech, and you're certainly not entitled to ask questions or to make us look like idiots who didn't read the executive order that we were condemning. The CAP committee requests that you meet them for a professional misconduct review hearing. On November 23rd, please report to the Office of Student Affairs, and you will be escorted to the meeting. Folks, this is what you do when you're about to fire someone. The hearing is to give you an opportunity to present your views as for the reasons for your professional performance to date. You know, and it's like, this has nothing to do with what this student is studying, what they're learning in class, how they're doing in class, their actual professional performance. This has to do with this student making the administrators look stupid. The CAP committee will be interested in hearing from you about any additional collegiate resources you believe can be provided to ensure your success. It doesn't really seem to me like they're interested in ensuring his success at all, but okay. The committee encouraged you to read pages 18 through 22 of the manual located on Intradent. It describes the purpose and possible outcomes of the hearing. There are 3 possible outcomes of the hearing. The committee could permit you to continue on professional probation for a specific limited period of time with specific requirements to be met. The committee may decide that the evidence warrants a dismissal recommendation to the executive associate dean. If that action should be taken, you would be advised of further process and procedures. The committee may recommend that no action be taken at this time. They were going to kick him out of school for exercising his free speech to call them out on their bullshit. Listen, I know I do stories like this all the time. I report on things like, I'm not a reporter. I'm a complainer on the internet. But like, I talk about stuff like this all the time. And it never ceases to boggle my mind how ridiculous people are. Michael replied to the letter asking if he would be allowed to bring an attorney or recording advice to the hearing. Associate Dean for Student Affairs Sherry Timmons told him that per the manual, he would be permitted to bring neither an attorney or to record the meeting. How convenient, Sherry. How convenient for you. Michael told Campus Reform that he reached out to several Republican state legislatures once he realized that he was not going to get fair and unbiased treatment within the school. More than a dozen responded to him, assuring him that the issue of freedom of speech in the state public universities would be a legislative priority for them. State Representative Steve Holt met with the College of Dentistry Dean David Johnson and University of Iowa President Bruce Harold on Michael's behalf. Michael subsequently received a letter from Johnson stating that the hearing had been canceled. Free speech issues can be difficult to navigate, and I apologize, we did not serve the college better, Johnson said. Everyone deserves to have their voice heard. And so we have to, listen, man, we have to give kudos. We have to give credit where credit is due that the College of Dentistry Dean and the University of Iowa President stepped in and put a stop to this nonsense. We have to give them a little clap. We have to give them kudos. We don't give them as many kudos because, frankly, the behavior of their staff in this regard reflects their leadership. So do I give a full-on slow clap to the Dean of the College of Dentistry? No, because he created the environment that allowed this type of mentality to be facilitated. Michael provided a personal statement to Campus Reform, which clarifies that he sees potential benefits of DEI training that explore a wide spectrum of implicit biases, yet believes DEI trainings derived from CRT are a whole separate issue, and this student is smarter than his teachers. CRT trainings are, by design, intended to highlight, deepen, and perpetuate racial divides, he explained. They are insulting and condescending to people of color and derogatory to people who are white. The CRT agenda is totalitarian, riddled with contradictory ideas, and is rooted in the goal of displacing free societies with a society that is fundamentally built upon the concept of permanent racial inequality. He also said that he absolutely does not regret speaking against the email. He sees the incident as one example of what is taking place at universities throughout the country. Listen, man, we need more people like this. We need more people to speak up and not be afraid to push back when these things happen. Now, Michael is very lucky in that he was going to a public university. Public universities are a different game. They're even a different game than like private universities, right? Because one is funded by your taxpayer dollars, and one is, by and large, not in terms of like tuition anyway. So there are different rules there. Now, if you are at a private university, or if you are in the work environment at a private organization, it's probably going to be a lot more difficult for you to speak up, and that's okay. You can still continue to push back in other ways. If you want ways that you can push back, you want to head over to newdiscourses.com, which is James Lindsay's website. He has some ideas on there, and building out more ideas on how to push back is going to be something that I'm actually going to be working on quite a bit moving forward. So I will fill you in on those ideas when I develop them, but I want to make sure that if I'm offering ways to push back, I'm doing it in a really, really responsible way. And I'm not there yet in terms of ways that I feel comfortable putting out there to the general public, that I just want to be really sure. I want to be really sure. I want to cross my T's and dot my I's, but this is something I am going to be working on moving forward. So just want to let you guys know that that's coming. All right, that's all I have for this particular video. If you enjoyed it, I do daily content around news, politics, culture, really anything that I find interesting, but with a really heavy bend lately on the social, woke, social justice nonsense, critical theory nonsense, all this stuff, because I truly believe that this is the most existential threat facing our country right now. No, I don't believe it's voter fraud, even though that's really, really important, and I don't want to put down the work that other people are doing in that area, but I believe that this is actually a much bigger and more subversive issue that is going to have more long-term ramifications. So that's really where I am focusing my time. If you enjoyed it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel, giving it a thumbs up, turning on notifications, leaving a comment, all that good stuff. That's all I've got for right now. I'll see you soon.